Joumana Kayrouz.
The war broke out in my home country, Lebanon. I was 11 years old, and I saw a lot of bloodshed and inequality and poverty. You can't grow up in an environment like that and not be affected by it and not want to make a difference. I graduated from Yale University with a master's in ethics. I speak 4 languages. It has always been innate in me fighting for the underdog and trying to do whatever it is I can to make a difference in the world.
Let Joumana Kayrouz protect your rights. Call the law offices of Joumana Kayrouz at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS extension 100 or visit yourrights.com.
قد يحاول بعض المصابين في حوادث السيارات إدارة قضاياهم توفيرا لأتعاب المحامين، والآن مكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز بإمكانه المساعدة من خلال إشرافه على سير القضية في جزئها الأول المتعلق بتعويضات الراتب والخدمات المنزلية، وتقوم بإرشادك في كيفية إدارة ملفك مجانا، بينما سيتولى المكتب مهمة الدفاع عن قضيتك في جزئها الثاني المتعلق برفع دعوى عن عطل وضرر. للمزيد من المعلومات اتصلوا بمكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز والاستشارات مجانية 248-557-3645. هل لديك مشاكل في قضايا الضمان الاجتماعي أو قانون إصابات العمل؟ المحامي باتريك هوران من مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز يضع خبرة 28 عاما في قضايا الضمان الاجتماعي وإصابات ضمن العمل في خدمتكم. الاستشارات مجانية. اتصل الآن بمكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز 248-557-3645. يتحدثون لغتكم العربية والكلدانية 248-557-3645. برنامج يور رايتس مع المحامية جومانا كيروز المختصة في قضايا حوادث السيارات، مع نخبة من المحامين في اختصاصات عدة منها الطلاق والهجرة والإفلاس، يأتيكم الآن على الهواء مباشرة. مساء الخير، أهلا بكم مستمعينا في حلقة جديدة من برنامج يور رايتس مع المحامية جومانا كيروز وعلى الهواء مباشرة. أرقام الهواتف في الاستوديو 313-769-6666 519-256-1023. كذلك على الواتساب بإمكانكم المشاركة برسائلكم وأسئلتكم، والرقم هو 313-327-7074. مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز تتعامل مع قضايا الإصابات الشخصية من ضمنها حوادث السيارات، قضايا إصابات العمل والأخطاء الطبية، قضايا الهجرة والتجنس، قضايا الإفلاس، الضمان الاجتماعي أيضا، والاستشارات مجانية عدا قضايا الهجرة والتجنس. رقم الهاتف في مكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز 248-557-3645. حلقات برنامج يور رايتس يعاد بثها على اليوتيوب. كل ما عليكم هو زيارة قناة جومانا كيروز على اليوتيوب والضغط على زر الجرس والمشاركة فيها ليصلكم كل ما هو جديد. تحياتنا لكم. مساء الخير جومانا.
مساء النور رامي، يعطيك العافية. How are you؟
الحمد لله، أهلا وسهلا. تحياتنا لك جومانا.
تحياتنا لك كمان ولكل المستمعين ولضيفنا لليوم مثل كل نهار خميس المحامي باتريك هوران اللي باختصاصه هو قضايا الضمان الاجتماعي والإصابات من العمل. Good afternoon, Attorney Patrick Horan. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Joumana?
I am doing good. Let me begin by congratulating you on a facilitation you just left out of where you agreed in a work-related injury to a little bit shy of $300,000. Congratulations.
Yes, it was a great morning.
Right. Congratulations. And we're going to use this as an example to explain to the listeners how you got to that amount, whether this is a fabulous amount, whether the injured worker would have been better off continuing to work if she could, of course, if she could, and so forth and so on. So it's a good example of a case that you just facilitated and how you will walk us through how the facilitator helped you and the lawyer for the workman's compensation case get to that amount. And it's my understanding that you have left the facilitation with the understanding that the defense counsel will recommend that amount to his client, the workman's comp insurance company, correct?
That's right. Both sides walked out recommending the figure that was recommended.
Okay, very good. So رح نحكي اليوم رامي عن facilitation. بعده ظاهر نص ساعة قدر عمل facilitation لموكلة من موكلينا المبلغ رح يكون واتفقوا عليه، لأنه الفاسيليتيشن هي مش دائما بتكون الفاسيليتيشن موجودة مع شخص هو فاسيليتيت، يعني بيكون همزة وصل بين الطرفين، مش دائما بتوصل لحل نهائي. أوقات بيوصلوا الطرفين لأماكن بعاد كتير عن بعض وما في اتفاق، بس الفاسيليتيشن اللي عملها اليوم بيقول لي إنه المحامي تبع الانشورنس كومباني is going to make a recommendation، يعني رح يقول للكلاينت، مين الكلاينت تبع الوركمنز كومبنسيشن اتورني؟ هي الوركمنز كومبنسيشن انشورنس. فالمحامي is going to make a recommendation إنه يقبلوا بهالمبلغ اللي هو أقل شوي من $300,000، والموكلة بلانة بهذا المبلغ. سو بفتكر إنه الملف بيخلص. المبلغ حلو كرقم حلو، رح نحكي كيف وصلنا له، ورح نرجع نذكر إنه بالإصابات ضمن العمل ما في حدا الشخص المصاب بيخسر مصاري، حتى لو جبنا له مئات ألوفات الدولارات، أو جبنا تسوية مئات ألوفات الدولارات، أو عملنا ترايل مئات ألوفات الدولارات. هيدا الإنسان بالنهاية خسران، لأنه لو ضل يشتغل، لو بيقدر يشتغل، لو منه مصاب كان بيعمل مصاري أكتر. سو المبلغ مبين عالي وهو جيد، بس هيدا المبلغ هو أقل بكتير مما هيدا الموكلة لو ضلت ضلت يعني تشتغل، كانت حصلت عليه. سو هيدي السيدة خلينا نطلب منه هو يقلنا بالأول.
نعم.
هون بننطلق. All right. Attorney Patrick Horan, tell us first the facts of the case before we get to the number.
So this young woman was working in a healthcare facility and was moving a patient on a wheeled stretcher gurney and was sort of smashed in an elevator when the elevator door closed against her. She suffered injuries to her right hand and wrist and her neck and low back. She's undergone several surgeries, and she remains with real significant pain and limitation, especially to that right hand and wrist.
How old is she?
She's a young woman. She's only 56.
Okay.
What are you laughing about, Joumana? Where I'm sitting, that's a young woman.
You caught yourself, because when you were hearing over the radio and you said, you know, her age, and I said, how old is she? And you go, she's 56. And I asked you to watch it. Not that I am 56. I'm about 20 years away from that, but I want to, advocate on behalf of all the 56 and 57-year-olds out there. They are still very young people, right? That's my story, right?
Well, that's where I'm sitting. What I do is I lie high. I tell everybody that I'm 70, and they say I still look good.
Yeah, that's a good way. All right. So she is 56 years old. She is today 56 years old, but I think she was injured in January of 2020 when she was maybe 55 or 54 years old. She's been off work since January, and she is a nurse and worked in the nursing field, and injured her right hand and her right arm. And as a result of that, developed what's called a complex regional pain syndrome, resulting in 2 surgeries to her hand and to her arm. There was another surgery. It's not clear if it's related or not, but what we know is related to the work-related injury is the right surgery, and the right hand needed to be done as a result of the work-related injury. So she was cut off, actually. She was not injured in January of 2020. She was cut off. The workman's compensation insurance stopped paying her wages every month in January of last year. So what you did today is sit in a facilitation with the lawyer for the workman's compensation insurance to go back on her wages and her unpaid medical bills, but her wages from January 2020, when they stopped paying her, through today and moving into the future, correct?
Right. So we've talked about in the past that in workers' comp, a judge can award weekly workers' comp wage loss benefits as long as you're disabled. But a settlement is different. A settlement is something that the parties agree to, and if a magistrate agrees that it's in the worker's best interest, they can award a lump sum settlement, and that closes the file forever. And that's what we talked about today, is what number would make sense for this woman to settle her case and end the file forever.
Okay. And this is the first time I hear you talk about facilitation in workman's compensation. In car accidents, we use facilitators, I think 95% of the time and 95% of the cases, because it gets people talking about real numbers. It gets you in the same room with the other side. You hear what their concerns are. You hear what their expectations are, and they do the same. And maybe 7 out of 10 times any work-related injury, when you sit with a facilitator, it settles the case, and the facilitator gets you to a number that both people are not happy with, but are happy enough and unhappy. Both people are unhappy and both people are happy enough, so we settle the case. Some cases do not settle at facilitation. We go to the next step, arbitration or trial or whatever. Now, in a car accident, we use facilitators that both sides agree on. And car accidents, we use facilitators that are typically trained lawyers or retired judges. Tell me, who was the facilitator in this case? How do you go about choosing facilitators? Are they appointed by the workman's comp magistrate, the judge in that case? Is it the judge in that case? Is it another lawyer? Is it a retired magistrate?
So I've seen this system change quite a bit in the 30 years I've practiced. It used to be there was one, sometimes two or three so-called mediators that were paid employees of the state that would perform this function and attempt to help the parties reach an agreement. They no longer have that position in workers' comp. And so what we've done is we've sort of drafted judges. And so I'll go to a judge that's not going to hear the case, and then we'll facilitate it in front of that other judge, a magistrate. So it's a sitting magistrate who had finished his other matters this morning, and he set aside an hour for us to put our case in front of him to see what kind of value he would assign to it.
Okay, so another magistrate played the role of a facilitator. How does a facilitator in a workman's comp charge? Also hourly, $400, $500 an hour?
No, there's no charge for this.
There is no charge.
Right.
That's
he's getting paid by the government to be a magistrate, and that's part of his duties now is to handle these facilitations.
Okay, it is within the magistrate's job description. Okay, very good. So now, today, you came to a number that's close to a little bit shy of $300,000. And the way you came to that amount is she makes around, give or take, I don't know, I don't want to use the wrong number, about $60,000 a year, $60,000 a year, something like that.
Well, again, I speak only about her workers' compensation rate, and her workers' compensation is worth $45,000 a year.
Okay,
so
clarify
that figure.
Let's clarify.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, that figure, that $45,000 a year, is 80% of her after tax.
Okay.
That's how workers' comp is always figured.
Or another way to put it is 80% of your take home. So
exactly.
All right. So you look at somebody, I know you only look at what the workman's compensation will pay, not what the person was making. Again, in a car accident, you look at somebody's gross wages, meaning before you take the taxes, the FICA and all that. And the car insurance company, if you are disabled from work because of an accident, will pay you 85% of your gross wages, which is about 93% of what you would have taken home. In a workman's compensation, they don't look at the gross wages. They look at, before they tell you what it is, they look at how much she was taking home every month. So let's say she was making gross $1,000 a month. She was taking home $920 a month. That's the take home. Now, the workman's comp rate for this lady is 80% of the take home. So it is 80% of the $920, which is about 75% of what she used to make. So let me repeat that. We look at what she was taking home, and workman's compensation only pays 80% of that. So if she was taking home $900, workman's compensation pays her 80% of that, whatever that number is, and that's it. So you determined that her 80% of her take home after taxes per year was $45,000, right?
Exactly.
So that's what you look at, $45,000 a year. Okay. And notice that she was making a lot more. So she is better off working than not working. And unlike car accidents where you can pad the wages with household services, attending care, throw in a case for pain and suffering, it makes it worth it for you if you are injured to pursue a case in a car accident. You do not have any of these benefits in a work-related injury. Let me take that back. You have a little bit of attending care, no more than 56 hours a week if you need it. There is no household services, and there is no case for pain and suffering, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, you told me that she is 55 years old and she is not likely to return to work in the future, correct?
Well, she certainly isn't going back to the kind of work she did in the past. Her past employment was pretty physical, and there's no way she could do that.
Okay. So when is the age of retirement?
65.
Okay. There is, of course, early retirement, and you can also postpone retirement. But for the purposes of workers' compensation, they look at the age of retirement as 65. And you, as her attorney, you are looking at payments. You want today to settle her case for now and the future. You don't want her to get a check every month because it's risky, and we'll talk about that. Today, you want to get a lump sum settlement that closes this file. She doesn't need anything anymore after she gets paid from workman's comp, and they don't owe her anything. So you're making the case that she will not be able to work for the next 10 years. So you're saying, workman's compensation, pay me her workman's comp rate, which is 80%, which came to $45,000, from today, age 55, to age 65, when she will start getting Social Security retirement. Well, that amount comes to $450,000. So will the workman's compensation pay you a lump sum for the next 10 years, reduced at the present value, yes or no?
They will pay some percentage of that based on what they think are the likelihood that they would have to make those payments. And that there's a lot of different factors that would go into that, but suffice it to say, they're never going to pay 10 years up front. Usually the maximum you can get them to pay up front is about 5 years.
And here is why, if I were a lawyer for the workman's compensation insurance, I will not pay 10 years up front. I will negotiate something less than that. And here is why. How do I know that she will live another year? How do I know she will live 5 years? How do I know she will live 6 years? How do I know she will live 7 years? Why pay her today all her workman's comp rate for the next 10 years when I don't know if she will live for 10 years? Because if she dies before she passes, before the 10 years, that money does not go to a survivor. The duty of the workman's compensation insurance stops. So if they were paying her every month, next year and the year after and the year after and the year after and the year after, the day she passes is the day they stop paying, and no one will inherit those checks afterward. This isn't like Social Security, retirement, and these rights. This is workman's compensation law. And in workman's compensation law, the duty on the part of the workman's compensation insurance to keep paying you your wages is extinguished or dies when you die.
That's right. And I've actually had that happen. I want to say about 15 years ago, I had a client who had a very good settlement, and literally 2 weeks after the settlement, he passed away. So
it was good that the settlement happened before he passed, because
for his family, for his family.
Of course, that's different. But paying every month by an insurance company, by a workman's comp insurance company, will stop when the person passes. So if you were the lawyer for the workman's comp, no, you're not going to pay 10 years. Take your risk. pay her every month on the odd chance that one of these days she will pass, and they can keep all that money and put it in the market, save it.
Right. And we haven't even gotten into, they will be looking for defenses to raise during those 10 years. Okay. They will have a video camera out, making sure she's not doing activities that contradict her disability. They will be sending her to doctors, trying to determine whether she is recovered and could do some work. They will be forcing her to look for other jobs. There's lots of ways for them to make her miserable over those 10 years.
If she wants to be paid every month, they will put surveillance on her to show that she's not injured anymore, or send her to IME doctors to say she's better now and here are all the jobs she can do, and call into question the continuity of these payments. So this is another reason why you, as a lawyer on behalf of someone, in an ideal world, always want to settle today for the future. This way, after she gets her settlement, she can go on a cruise and she can go dance and she can find a job and she can live her life, and she does not have to worry about, them putting investigation or surveillance on her. And she doesn't have to worry about them asking her a year from now to go to the insurance doctor, who will then issue a report favorable to them so that they can stop her. By settling today for everything in the past and moving forward, she becomes a free person. She no longer has to answer to anybody, and she can live her life without worrying that this will be interpreted as this or as that.
That's right. And this particular woman has a good head on her shoulders. I have no doubt that she will take this money and utilize it to get a new start in a different line of work, or invest it in a business that will help her in the future.
Are you recommending that perhaps she considers an annuity or something like that?
This particular woman has, I believe, already has one or two rental properties, and she's interested in expanding that. I think that's a good idea for her.
Right. And as long as you bring money for your client and you feel that they know how they will use it, they have a good idea, it's good. And it seems like, making recommendations for her are pointless because she's there already. She's already thinking about how she can use that money to put it to good use and have it make her more money.
Now, while we were talking, Joumana, because we're talking about numbers, this is a very good case. This is a strong case that I had this morning. But I wanted to take a minute to look up what the average number is for a workers' comp settlement. And those numbers are printed in the Michigan government website. And last year, the average settlement in workers' comp was only $58,000.
Yes, we don't want to mislead our listeners into thinking that this is the kind of settlement they can expect. It has to do with their workman's comp rate. It has to do with their injuries. She had two.
Right.
She is still
and
there.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about for a minute is I had a client last week who found on the internet some website suggested that a particular injury on the job injury was worth a particular amount of money. And they brought that to me and said, well, how come my shoulder isn't worth $125,000? This website says shoulder injuries are worth $125,000. And I pointed out to them that website was from Oklahoma. I don't know what the workers' comp law is in Oklahoma, but I can tell you in Michigan, it's all about wage loss. It has nothing to do with what particular injury you have.
It has to do with the injury in that, if I may submit to you, just in that it affects your ability in the future of returning to work.
That's right. But
for example,
somebody like you and me who don't need to use our shoulders on the job, we could have an injured shoulder and not have any wage loss at all. Correct.
But her being a nurse, her needing her two hands.
That's right.
She can no longer use her right hand, so she can no longer be a nurse for the rest of her life. So now you determined that 80% of her after-tax or take-home came to $45,000 a year. You established that she is not likely to be able to return to her job, that she has another 10 years before she gets Social Security retirement, and you got the facilitator to get both of you guys to agree, no, they're not going to pay 10 years worth of wages because she can die in way less than 10 years, but you agreed to about, give or take, 5 years of wages. So that's how the number came closer to the $345,000 a year for about 5 more years, and that's about $250, give or take, $1,000, correct?
That's right.
Now, we will only add that $250 for every single year for the next 5 years, but that number will be a little bit less than that because it has to be reduced to today's present day value, correct?
This settlement is a lump sum settlement. It's in her case, I think it's going to end up being about 225 plus medical, which will get it right to around 250.
Okay, I get it. Okay, that's fine. It is a settlement. This isn't a redemption. This isn't.
That's right.
Okay, get it. It's parties agreeing. And so that is why you're not talking about the present day value. Fine. Now, in addition to what you would get, there were some medical bills that workman's compensation did not pay. Some of those doctors were represented by other lawyers, so you're not taking that bill into consideration. Some other doctors ask you to keep their bills with you. So you were able to get another, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 for the medical bills. You are entitled to attorney's fee, correct? Like in a car accident, because but for your legal representation, those doctors either would not have been paid or would have had to hire lawyers who would also charge them the same.
That's right.
Okay. So it looks like a fabulous number. And I think she is very pleased because I think you've done a very good job of setting the expectations from the very beginning that, look, in a workman's compensation case, you lose money. You don't make money. You are better off continuing to work. This is a good example. If this lady continued to work for the next 10 years, you would have made gross $600,000, say $60,000 a year. Yes, she has to pay taxes on them. And yes, it's reduced by the FICA. So she would have made, I don't know, $500,000, $520,000, depending on her tax bracket. So definitely a little bit less than 300 is a lot less than $500,000, a lot less than 525,000. So yes, she would have been better off continuing to work, but life had it another way. Life wanted it to be that she is injured and that she cannot continue to work.
Right. And this is, all things considered, this is a great outcome for her. I'm very happy what we've been able to do for her, but you're right. It would have been a lot better if that day had never happened on the job.
Okay. And again, because there aren't things like you can sue for pain and suffering and all of that, that's what she gets. And then she gets the attorney fee. Tell me how your attorney fee will be, because it's all regulated by law, by a Michigan compiled law.
Right. So workers' comp attorneys get paid less than, for instance, auto attorneys do. We get, in a case like this that's in dispute and we're talking about a settlement, a redemption of liability, the workers' comp attorney fee is 15% of the first $25,000 and 10% of the remainder of that. So it's much less than a 1/3 fee.
Repeat it again. 15% of the first
$25,000.
Okay.
And then 10% of everything else.
Okay. 15% of the first $25,000 and then 10% of the rest. Okay. In car accidents, it is 1/3, which is 33.33%.
Right.
Okay. Pat, let's take a quick break. And when we return, I'm going to go over the scenario in Arabic, and we will go from there.
Okay.
مشاكل في قضايا الضمان الاجتماعي أو قانون إصابات العمل، المحامي باتريك هوران من مكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز يضع خبرة 28 عاما في قضايا الضمان الاجتماعي وإصابات ضمن العمل في خدمتكم. الاستشارات مجانية. اتصل الآن بمكاتب المحامية جومانا كيروز 248-557-3645. يتحدثون لغتكم العربية والكلدانية. 248-557-3645. قد يحاول بعض المصابين في حوادث السيارات إدارة قضاياهم توفيرا لأتعاب المحامين، والآن مكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز بإمكانه المساعدة من خلال إشرافه على سير القضية في جزئها الأول المتعلق بتعويضات الراتب والخدمات المنزلية، وتقوم بإرشادك في كيفية إدارة ملفك مجانا، بينما سيتولى المكتب مهمة الدفاع عن قضيتك في جزئها الثاني المتعلق برفع دعوى عن عطل وضرر. للمزيد من المعلومات اتصلوا بمكتب المحامية جومانا كيروز والاستشارات مجانية 248-557-3645. Your Rights مع المحامية جومانا كيروز. أهلا بكم مرة أخرى في برنامج Your Rights مع المحامية جومانا كيروز، وبالتأكيد أرقام الهواتف في الاستوديو 313-769-6666 519-256-1023. تحياتنا لكم مستمعينا، ونرجع أكيد لك جومانا وهذا الحوار الشيق. قبل ما نترك الحديث أكثر معك والمحامي باتريك موران، هل الساتلمنتس اللي بتحصل أو يعني في إطار هذه القضايا الأشخاص يدفعوا تاكس عليها، إنه في تاكس لازم يدفعوا عليها في الأخير جومانا؟
شكرا جزيلا رامي انه عم تسال هيدا السؤال، لانه ما بحثني مع المحامي باتريك هوران. نعم، هذه التسويه any workman's compensation is tax free. يعني الموكله ما رح تدفع ضريبه عليها، ما تعتبر income. يعني وقت بيوصل لها التسويه لو شو ما كانت 220,000 215,000 كلها 100% منها بتاخدها وقت اللي بتروح لتقدم الضريبة تبعها ما تعتبر income بدها تدفع عليها taxes. مثل التسوية عطل وضرر، التسوية عطل وضرر بحوادث السيارات بين الطرف الأول للطرف الثاني كمان 100% it is tax free. الراتب تبع الإنسان بحوادث السيارات كمان it is tax free. وإنما الخدمات المنزلية والعناية الشخصية يعتبروا income ومنهم tax free. So thank you إنه سألتني هيدا السؤال. Patrick Horan confirming that a settlement in workman's compensation is tax-free. It is not considered income that the injured worker has to pay taxes on at the end of in April of the following year, correct?
And the reason for that is because the amount of your weekly workers' comp rate is figured after taxes. So essentially you'd be taxed twice if you had to pay taxes on that.
So double taxation, that's a constitutional violation. Right. Otherwise you would be taxed twice. They're already paying you 80% of your after taxes, and now taxing you on that would be double taxation. And that is definitely, I know enough to tell you that that is a no-no. That's almost like double jeopardy kind of situation. One more thing before we discuss all this in Arabic, and this is such a good example today. Thank you so much, because it touches on a lot of things. What happens after age 65? If she gets her Social Security retirement at 65, and she was still getting payments for workman's comp, that's not going to happen in this case, right? Because you're getting everything today. But let's say somebody continues to get workman's comp payments, and now they are age 65 and more. Does the workman's comp have to continue paying what they were paying them in the same amount? Do they stop, or does it become less?
The workers' comp will reduce by the amount that you get from Social Security retirement benefits.
So let's say, and we're not talking about her because again, you are making one lump sum. You're settling this for now and into the future. But let's say somebody gets workman's compensation checks and now they are older than 65. And again, you can retire early, 62, you can retire late as I believe 70, but for the purposes of this law, they look at age 65. So if someone at age 64 and a half was getting a $3,000 workman's comp check every month, and now they are 65 and they're getting $1,500 every month from the Social Security Administration, the Workmen's Compensation Bureau does not anymore pay them $3,000, so they don't collect $1,500 from Social Security and $3,000 from Workmen's Comp. Now they get a total of $3,000, $1,500 of which from Social Security retirement and the amount from workman's comp goes down from 3,000 to 1,500.
Right. And it's not fair, but it's a part of the workers' compensation law that was written at a time when nobody would work after they received Social Security retirement benefits. Nowadays, a lot of older people, after they get Social Security retirement, will continue to work in some capacity.
And they should either work, or get passive income, because we talked about that a few times in previous shows. Social Security retirement benefits, even if you are Bill Gates, are never going to be enough to support you. So you want to find other ways to supplement your Social Security retirement by getting other jobs. And nothing prevents you, jobs or things on the side or passive income like rental agreements or whatever the case may be, because Social Security retirement is not going to be money. The Social Security retirement money you will get will not be enough to pay your bills for you and give you a minimum standard of living. Let's talk about the scenario in Arabic. رامي إيدي السيدة هلا عمرها 55 سنة، هي كانت نيرس، تعرضت لإصابة ضمن العمل. بسبب الإصابة إيدها اليمين والرست تبعها اليمين اتأذوا، صار عندها شيء اسمه complex regional pain syndrome. كان الإصابة كانت عندها من تقريبا سنة ونص، سنتين، يعني هلا عمرها 55، بس الإصابة حصلت قبل جانيوري 2020، سو كان عمرها شيء 52 53. ما عاد فيها تشتغل as a nurse بسبب الإصابة تبعها. اضطرت تعمل عمليتين لإيدها ولا her hand and her wrist, I think, or hand or shoulder, something like that. وقفوا يدفعوا لها الوركمنز كومبنسيشن بجانيوري السنة الماضي. اليوم عمل فاسيليتيشن وقدروا وصلوا لمبلغ كلهم مقتنعين فيه، كل الأطراف مقتنعين فيه. يعني بات والموكلة تبعنا، الوركمنز كومبنسيشن انشورنس والمحامي تبعهم، اللي هو بحدود تقريبا أقل شوي من $300,000. خلينا نبحث كيف وصلنا $300,000. هيدي السيدة وقفوا يدفعوا لها من جانيوري 2020. أول شغلة بدك تحددها، الوركمنز كومبنسيشن رامي هي ماث، ما فيها لغز، ما فيها pain and suffering، ما فيها بتعد المصاري. أول شغلة بتطلع عليها هي قد ايه كانت تقبض بالسنة، لنقول كانت تقبض $60,000. بحوادث السيارات بيطلعوا على الجروس وبيعطوك 85% منه. بالوركمنز كومبنسيشن بيطلعوا على التيك هوم وبيعطوك 80% منه. هي كانت تعمل جروس 60,000 على سبيل المثال، بس يمكن شي would take home $52,000. هون بيعطوا دائما بالوركمنز كومب بيسموه the workman's comp rate. هذا الريت هو دائما 80% من التيك هوم. إذا هيدي السيدة كانت تعمل 60,000 جروس، she would take home 52,000، 80% من 52,000. بكل الأحوال in this case وقت عملوا الماث لقوا إنه 80% من التيك هوم after tax إلها طلع $45,000 بالسنة. عدوا من جانيوري 2020 لليوم، ولأنه ما رح تقدر ترجع على العمل اللي هي كانت فيه، قدر أثبت المحامي بات إنه هي ما رح تقدر ترجع على العمل. كانت التسوية اليوم مش بس من وقت ما وقفوا بجانيوري 2020 لحد اليوم، but moving forward. ما بدنا إياهم يدفعوا لها check every month، لأنه الدفعات check every month فيها خطورتها وبنحكي عنها بعد دقيقة. طلب اليوم المحامي إنه نحن اليوم نعمل تسوية للماضي وللحاضر وللمستقبل. المستقبل إنه هي عمرها 55 وهي قبل 65 ما فيها تتقاعد، ما حدا بيقدر يجبرها تتقاعد قبل 65. يعني عنا 10 سنين شغل لقدام، 10 سنين شغل لقدام، $45,000 بالسنة، هيدا $450,000 على 10 سنين. وإنما الوركمنز كومبنسيشن انشورنس وقت بتيجي بدك تعمل معهم تسوية مش ترايل. إذا بدك تعمل معهم تسوية ما رح يرضوا يعطوك اليوم دفع 10 سنين لقدام. ليه؟ لأنه بيقولوا ليه بدنا ندفع هالقد؟ يمكن تموت سنة الجاي، يمكن تموت البعدها، يمكن تموت البعدها، لأنه مسؤوليتنا كوركمنز كومبنسيشن بتوقف النهار اللي بتموت. ما في ثروة أو ما في ورثة، بعتذر بالموضوع. يعني مش مثل مثلا Social Security Retirement the widow can get it, SSI benefits. No. بالworkman's compensation وقت بيموت الانجرد وركر بتخلص مسؤوليه الوركمنز كومبنسيشن انشورنس. سو الانشورنس كومباني عم تقول ليه نحن بدنا ندفع 10 سنين لقدام، بنفضل ندفع لها كل شهر، ويمكن يجي وقت تتوفى وبيوقف الدفع. ليه بدنا ندفع؟ سو اجمالا ما بيدفعوا اكثر من 5 سنين لقدام. سو 5 سنين لقدام وشوي لورا طلع المبلغ شوي تقريبا بحدود ال 270,000. بالاضافه عندها بعض البلات اللي عم بيمثل الدكاتره المحامي باتريك هوران. فوقت اللي ضفنا الراتب من جانيوري 2020 لليوم وتقريبا 5 سنين لقدام اقل شوي، والميديكال بيلز طلعت التست طلع اليوم المبلغ الفاسيليتيشن طلع تقريبا شوي اقل من $300,000. هيك وصلوا للرقم. مبين الرقم حلو وهو الرقم لا بأس به، بس هيدي السيدة رامي إذا كانت تعمل بالمعدل $60,000 بالسنة، حتى لو تدفع ضريبة وتيك هوم 52,000، لو ضلت تشتغل كانت عملت for the next 10 years 520,000. هو رح يجيب له أقل بكتير من هيك. ليه؟ لأنه 80% of after tax هي مش 100%، وبده ياخد تكاليفه. وبعدين إذا بدك تعمل تسوية لقدام ما رح يدفعوا لك السنوات كلها، رح يدفعوا لك نصها، رح يدفعوا لك مش أكتر من 5 سنين. يعني كيف ما برمتها رامي، صحيح المبلغ مبين حلو، بس إذا بتيجي بتفنده للمبلغ، هيدا الإنسانة لو كان فيها كانت better off تضل تشتغل، لأنه رح تطلع مصاري أكتر حتى لو دفعت ضريبتها، من إنه إذا قعدت off work بسبب الwork related injury. نرجع للنقطة اللي دايما عم نعملها، إنه ما في إنسان بيحب يعمل work related injury وسعيد، وما في إنسان تجي تسوية ويكون مبسوط فيها. ليه؟ لأنه it's never 100% of شو كنت تعمل، بغض النظر عن تكاليف المحامي اللي هي منا كتير، مش مثل حوادث السيارات، هي أقل. وإنما كيف ما برمتها مش عم تحصل على 100%. سو أكيد ما رح تكون مبسوط. أكيد إذا قعدت بالبيت أو رفوق 3 سنوات وناطر الوركمنز كامب تبعك، أكيد ما رح تحصل على اللي أنت كنت تعمله وقت اللي أنت كنت عم تشتغل. بس هيدي ما غلطة حدا، هيدا القانون هيك بيقول.
بس غريب جمانة يعني انه يتم وضع هذا القانون بهذا الشكل. يعني انه شخص بالتالي شنو الفائدة من وضع القانون اذا ما كان يخدم المواطن او الشخص اللي متعرض للإصابة مثلا؟
في كتير قوانين ما بتخدم هي نوع من الكومبنسيشن. ما بعرف ليش كتبوه هيك.
نعم.
خليني أسأله. Attorney Patrick Horan, Rami is saying it is so unfair that somebody cannot work because they cannot work, and the law says you can only take 80% of your take home, which is about 75% of what you used to make. Where is the fairness in that? Why was the law written like that?
I think probably it was
the insurance lobby.
It truly was a negotiated compromise between labor and management 100 years ago. And part of what you get is it not being worked.
Wants 20%.
Sorry, that?
Labor wants 110%, and management wants 10%.
Right, and so they got to a number that would work for both sides. And you know, if you have a situation that's a no-fault system, the benefits are going to be lower than a system where we have to prove fault. So that's another thing that goes into it.
Rami, not all laws are fair.
That's
laws try to be fair. They try to get to be fair, but they are something, but they're not 100% fair.
Right. Don't use the F word in workers' comp. Fair. Don't use the F word.
Yes, fair. Fair is the F word. Fair. Yeah, not fair. Going back to Arabic and continuing this, وإنما الشغلة اللي بدنا نضيفها مثل ما حضرتك قلت رامي، إنه وقت اللي بتاخد التسوية ما رح تدفع ضريبة عليها، لا تعتبر income. وقت اللي بتروح لتقدم التاكسس تبعها بالسنة اللي بعدها the following April، لازم تقول للبوك كيبر أو للأكاونتنت بعتذر عن المبلغ، بس هيدا المبلغ is tax free. لأنه مثل ما Attorney Patrick Horan correctly pointed out, you cannot be double taxed. ما already هن عم يدفعوا 80% after tax، بترجع بعدين ضريبة على 80% after tax، يعني you were taxed twice. So دستوريا هيدا غير دستوري. You cannot be double taxed. هيدا مخالف للدستور. So هيدا المصاري is free and clear. وذات الشيء بحادث السيارة. رامي.
مهم.
التسوية عطل وضرر كمان it's tax free. كمان you do not pay taxes on it. وبحادث السيارة your wages من الانشورنس كومباني تبعك كمان are tax free لأنه عم يدفعوا لك already 85% already شايلين الضريبة. You cannot be taxed a second time. So الراتب تبعك وقت اللي بتحصله بسبب حادث سيارة is tax free. وإنما إذا حصلت على خدمات منزلية وعناية شخصية هذا تعتبر income ليلي أخذ التشيك وصرفه.
نعم. مهم. طيب جمانة،
Now
هل هذا الشيء يأثر على البنفتس الأخرى للشخص اللي مثلا واحد هو لو انكم عنده بنفتس معينة من الحكومة، هل هذا الشيء هذه التسوية ممكن أن تؤثر يعتبروها أنه دخل وبالتالي راح تنقطع عليه المساعدات الأخرى؟
That's a very good question. Is it considered, the question, Attorney Patrick Horan, is this settlement, will this settlement be considered at income, as income? We know for tax purposes it's not. But do you have an idea? And I know you're going to tell me this is not your area of the law, but maybe you have an idea. Maybe you don't know, but maybe you have an idea. Do you think that that is considered income for the purposes of applying for SSI? No, you cannot.
It's an asset. So what you're asking is it considered an asset? And the answer is yes.
Okay. So
it's money in your account. So sure.
Well, but at any rate, Rami, if somebody has a workman's compensation case, that means they have more than the 40 credits required, so they can never qualify for SSI and Medicaid, right? So they would
be getting SSD.
And Medicare, which is, trust me, better. SSD payments are way higher than SSI payments, and Medicare is better than Medicaid. So it is considered an asset. It will not qualify you for, say, Medicaid and food stamps and all of that. You don't want to be an SSI after you have a work-related injury because you already have the credits. You have more than the 40 credits needed. That's why you were a workman's comp. So you want to apply and get SSD. And you want to be SSD, not SSI, because the SSD payments are higher than SSI payment. And because with SSD, you get Medicare. With SSI, you don't get Medicare. But for the purposes of, say, food stamps and Section 8 housing and all of that, as he's saying, it is an asset. So I think it will count against you. Another reason, سبب تاني رامي ليه هيدي السيدة من مصلحتها اليوم تعمل تسوية للبيمنات الماضيين الحاضرين وللمستقبل من هلأ ل10 سنين. لأنه إذا عملت تسوية اليوم جيدة أو يعني نوعا ما جيدة، مثل مثلا التسوية اللي اليوم قدروا وصلوا لها واللي هي قبلت فيها، أحسن لا تحصل على المصاري اليوم. لأنه أول ما تحصل على المصاري رامي خلص ما بقى بدها شيء بالمستقبل من الوركمنز كامب، وبالتالي ما عادت معرضة إنه يحطوا عليها مراقبة ليشوفوا إذا بيضلوا يدفعوا لها بالمستقبل. بدهم يضلوا عيونهم عليها، بدهم يشوفوا إذا هي عن جد متأذية، إذا ما زالت متأذية، إذا بيبعتوها عند الدكاترة تبعهم ليفرجوا إنه ما عادت متأذية. سو في خطر إذا ضلوا يدفعوا لها بالمستقبل إنه دايما المراقبة عليها والقدرة إنه يبعتوها عند الانشورنس دكتور ويقشوها تتشيل هيدا الضغط كله عليها. إذا بتقدر تعمل تسوية اليوم للمستقبل، يس ما أخذت 10 سنين لأنه ما رح يعملوا تسوية 10 سنين، أخذت 5 سنين لقدام. بس الحلو إنه أول ما عملت التسوية ومضيت الريليس، حتى ما وصل لتشيك، مضيت الريليس صارت حرة، فيها تعمل بدها إياه، فيها تروح على الجيم، وفيها تروح تاخد جوب تاني، وفيها whatever it is اللي بتريد تعمله. She does not owe anything to anyone. She's no longer on the radar. خلص خلصت بيناتهم، وفيها ترجع تستعيد حريتها كاملة 100%. سألته للمحامي باتريك شو التكاليف the attorney fee. ذكرني وهي it is by law، هي قانونية، في there is a Michigan compiled law اللي بتقول any work related injury شو التكاليف المحامي. تكاليف المحامي إذا ما رحت على الترايل، إذا رحت على الترايل بتعلى، بس إذا ما رحت على الترايل اللي هي 99% من كل الملفات، 15% من أول $25,000 ما تبقى 10%. هي أقل بكتير من الاتورني في حوادث السيارات اللي هي 33.33%. any workman's compensation rate any workman's compensation case الموكل بياخد تقريبا 90% من المصاري اللي بيجيب له اياها المحامي، لانه المحامي بياخد فقط 15% من اول 25,000. يعني هيدي السيدة اللي رح تاخد تقريبا لنقول شي 275,000 رح ياخد 15%. I'm gonna pull out the calculator. 25 times 0.15 so رح ياخد 3,750 من أول 25,000، ولنقول بقيلة 250,000. 10% هي 25,000، يعني 25,000 و3,000 رح يكونوا تقريبا 28,000 من 275,000. لو كان 33% من 275,000 كنا عملناها تايب 0.333. بعتذر، عم بطبع الكالكوليتر سكرتها تايمز 0.333 كان طلع له أكتر بكتير، بس مش عم يطلع معي الرقم، بعتذر. 275,000 multiplied by 0.333 كان طلع له تقريبا 91,000. so بيطلع له شي 26,000 لأنه it's a workman's comp، بس لو كان هيدا حادث سيارة كان طلع له تقريبا فوق $90,000. so you see the difference. عنا 4 دقائق رح أضيف بعد نقطة كمان وضحها المحامي باتريك هوران للأشخاص اللي بضل يندفع لهم بالشهر workman's comp رامي وبيوصل بعمر 65 بيجبرون يقدموا على social security retirement، لأنه أنت بحق لك تقدم as early as 62 و as late as 70. وحكينا ليش أوقات إذا فيك تأجل قد ما بتأجل قد ما هدول البيمنات بيعلوا. but let's put that aside for a minute for the purposes of workman's comp. بس بسبب هيدا workman's comp بهيدا القانون فقط بيعتبروا إنه أنت بدك تتقاعد عمر 65. so بيجبروك تقدم وبيشوفوا قد ايه عم تقبض بالشهر. so لنقول قبل ما تقدم كانوا يدفعوا لك سلم جدلا $3,000 هي ال 80% of your after tax. سلم جدلا right. أول ما بتقدم وبيبلشوا يدفعوا لك social security retirement، لنقول social security retirement عم تدفع لك $1,500 بالشهر صح؟ هلأ من بعد ما تبلش تقبض social security retirement رح تاخد $1,500 من social security retirement، ورح تاخد 1,500 ما عاد 3,000 من الworkman's comp. so بس وجبات الworkman's comp بتنزل من 3,000 لل 2,500 وبتضلك تقبض 3,000. وأنا هيدي كمان بعتبرها unfair but هيدا القانون هيك بيقول. so الأشخاص اللي بيتجاوزوا 65 بيجبرون يقدموا social security لحتى يخفضوا لهم البيمنتس. الworkman's comp بتدفع، بس بتدفع reduced by شو عم يقبضوا كل شهر من السوشيال سيكوريتي ريتايرمنتس. الشغلة الأخيرة وبنشكر بات إنه وضح لنا إياها، ما بدنا المستمعين يفكروا إنه هيدي التسوية اللي اليوم يعني وصلنا لها هي نموذج عن التسويات تبع إصابات العمل في ولاية ميشيغان. اطلع على الميشيغان.gov ويب سايت ولقى إنه the average number of workman's comp settlements، يعني إذا بتطلع على التسويات كلها تبع workman's comp. Was it Attorney Patrick Horan for 2020? The average number of workman's comp settlements that you looked at?
Yes, 2020 average workers' comp settlement was $59,235.42.
Okay. So المعدل للتسويات الwork related هي منا 275,000 شوي أقل من 300,000. هي أقل بكتير، هي تقريبا هي شوي أقل من 60,000. يعني في منهم أكتر مثل هيدي السيدة، في منهم أقل. سو ما بدنا المستمعين يفكروا إنه هيدي شغلة نقدر نحصل عليها بكل ملف. بنتمنى، وإنما إذا بتطلع على الإحصاءات المعدل بولاية ميشيغان لل 2020 تسويات كانت أقل شوي من $60,000. فكر خلص الوقت. Attorney Patrick Horan, that was a fabulous show that God willing we will repeat 1 week from this Sunday. So this Sunday we are repeating a bankruptcy show. God willing next Sunday we will repeat it at 7 p.m. for our listeners. Thank you so much. Rami, thank you so much.
شكرا لك جمانة، تحياتنا
My
لك.
pleasure.
ثانك يو. واكيد لكل مستمعينا نشكر لهم حسن المتابعه. دمتم في رعايه الله، الى اللقاء.
From the law offices of Joumana Kayrouz Studio, this is CINA 102.3 FM, Windsor, Detroit.
المحامية جومانا كيروز المحلفة أمام المحكمة الأمريكية العليا The United States Supreme Court 248-557-3645.